Sound speeds. How you feeling?
Yeah, it's an ending. Oh no.
Oh boy.
We're
just gonna trust
jostle it. Don't touch the table. Don't touch the mic. Let's just hope that Cam's autofocus is working. And don't take any of this as a metaphor for the condition of the company. That we're scrappy and we use gear until it's served its
until it can't
purpose.
be used anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, quick thumbnail. What are we doing? You guys clicked already. What did we do?
It's like a professional wrestler or boxing match, like Face Off. I don't think
I don't know if I love this.
We could do something like. Okay, I'm embarrassed. We could stop there.
Well, I don't think it's gonna stay in. It's gonna stay in.
Also, the company went to Disneyland yesterday.
That was my first Disney experience. It turns out magic is real.
How do you live in LA for as long as you have and not go to Disneyland?
It's really easy. You just do anything else. And then you just somehow you're like, I didn't go to Disney today.
So we were talking about it in the car on the way back from, and we were like, I can't believe that was Brent's first time. Just you seem like somebody who would have gone to Disneyland. He worked at Nickelodeon.
Yeah. Oh.
And I thought maybe he was contractually
Are we diametrically opposed?
Obligated not to go to Disneyland.
It was magical, man. I really, really liked it.
Should we tell the 5,000 people watching this who we are?
I think so.
I'm John. I think some people know me.
I think that's fair to say.
I've been the creative director for Jubilee for 3 years. And before that, I was a director for about 2 years. I'm doing some fuzzy math here, but I've been here roughly 5 years.
Like 2018?
Yep, 2018.
I'll introduce myself in a second. What was the company like back then?
Different. It was small. It was baby. It was
how small?
Baby Jubilee.
5
people.
We're like 30 to 40 people now? It was 5 people?
I was the 4th full-time hire. So Jason, Dan, Taylor, Ryan, and then I think it was Ian and me. So I guess I was I was the 5th hire, so I was 6th person.
What were you doing before Jubilee?
I had been a video journalist for Univision.
What did that entail? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was traveling, filming assignments around the world, international stories. And they called me a predator. So I produced, shot, and edited stories for digital.
People love that. We don't have any predators here at Jubilee, and I think I want to keep it that way because that's a confusing title to have.
We do wear many hats, but it was not a good title, but it was kind of like industry slang at the time. But so I was doing that, and then I applied to be a director because Jubilee is one of the few companies. A lot of places call the people who make their videos producers, but Jubilee was like, we're looking for directors, and so they captured the attention of a lot of film kind of people like me. And so I applied. I'm pretty sure the job post was on Craigslist.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, so I'm getting laid off.
So what were you doing on Craigslist? What were you hoping to find on Craigslist? Were you going for jobs?
My entire career, I owe my whole career in LA to Craigslist. I don't think it's
I say that because I love Craigslist.
Craigslist isn't what it was, but for a while, LinkedIn wasn't as big in 2016, 2017. I would go there just curious, like what opportunities, what stories. There's just kind of like a fun garage sale kind of aspect to Craigslist. So I saw like a job post on Craigslist and I clicked it, and then it's like, we're looking for directors. And then there was a link to Jubilee's YouTube channel. I think they were just shy of 1 million subs at that point. It's like 800K, 700K, but it was growing fast. Around the time I came across this post. And so, they're looking for directors, and I saw Middle Ground, and Amari was the director who had been here at that time, and they had just made like 2 episodes of Middle Ground. Taylor had edited them, and I was like, this is interesting. And I had been at Univision. We were doing political content, very left-leaning. And I was like, nobody's watching this except people who already have decided.
Who agree with us already.
What we're trying to say. And we were trying to be nuanced and tell interesting stories, but just there wasn't a actual discussion or dialogue happening in those videos. And so with Middle Ground, I was looking for something like Middle Ground. And then it was like so on the nose. I couldn't believe it. And so immediately I applied. I connected with Ian. I sent him my reel. He's like, yeah, come in. I interviewed, and Jubilee's been doing those round robin interviews for forever. So I talked to everybody on the team. It was only 5 people at the time. And then Jason sent me an email. He's like, we're not going to make you an offer. We're passing because we're just not sure.
Oh.
He's like, but we loved talking to you. We obviously are impressed by your work, but we're kind of a no at the time. And so I was like, who do these people think they are? But
I
also
am perfect for this. They are perfect for me. Why are they ignoring the synergy that's happening?
And I think there's different kinds of people in the world. There's people who, when they are rejected, react, maybe they push against that. And then there are people who like go back and are like, wait, are you sure? And so I think I'm the latter. I was like, you can't reject me. Like, I'm going to make you love me. I
want you to dig up this email so badly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it would take a minute, but I was like, just let me make one video, freelance, and let's just go from there. And Jason loves like a good kind of compromise like that, and so he's like, yeah, that's interesting. So then Ian's like, okay, if we give you $2,000, what can you do? Which to me at the time I was like, $2,000 to make a video. Great. I had been making like $48,000 as with my journalism job. So I was like, this is awesome. Not a lot of money in media, just so you guys know. There can be, but
not everywhere.
It's a passion career choice. So yeah, I was like, $2,000, you got it. Drove to Arizona, found this day trader. His name, I'm forgetting his name, but anyway, the video was like a guy making $11,000 in a day.
It's Bottom Line.
Bottom Line.
Yeah. I just watched that earlier this week. It was like, did you make that?
Yeah,
for real?
that.
I loved that video.
So I was just doing what I had been doing at Univision. I was like, I'll just shoot it myself, edit it myself. So I found these two guys, Azariah, who was awesome. He had been in like one Jubilee video prior to that, and he's just so down. He's like, just come hang out with me for a whole day. I do DoorDash deliveries. I was like, perfect. And then there was this guy, Ricky, who's the day trader, much more of a posturing kind of guy, less like just come hang out with me, and more kind of like he was controlling his image, but he's very successful. He owns at that time, I don't know how he's doing now. I think he's still pretty successful and does similar content. But yeah, he let me hang out with him for a day and kind of talk about his businesses, film him doing day trading. He was selling courses on how to make money on, and all that stuff. He was sort of like
those revenue streams.
A financial guru. So I had no idea. Jubilee had not done documentary stuff that way. I had no idea how it was going to do, but Jason was like, yeah, it's got to be interactive. It's got to be like really accessible. So we designed the graphics, and I edited that video for like 3 weeks and did like multiple all-nighters. Just kind of like threw everything into it. And while I was working on that video, Ian was like, hey, we have this opportunity with YouTube to do an Israel-Palestine middle ground. You've filmed around the world. Maybe you could direct this. And so I was like, yeah, I'll definitely do that. No questions. And then I was like, okay, so what's the plan? How do we make that video? And they're like, no, you tell us.
You're the guy.
I was like, oh my God. So I found great fixer who had worked with Vice over in Tel Aviv, and then he helped me produce that video. And that, I think that went pretty well. It was really, really interesting.
I'd say.
And when I came back, Jason's like, cool, like this is going really well. Do you want to be a director? And so it's been, since those 2 videos, it's just been like an asteroid of an experience where I'm just sort of hanging on, and bits of me are dissolving and combusting in the atmosphere.
You end up leaving pieces of you in almost every piece of content that you end up producing, because they're all just such passion projects, such big parts of your life as you're living it.
Yeah, but at that time it wasn't just me. It was like I was doing that, but then like Dan Chen was like a big fan of Solfa, and he's like, oh, we should reach out to Solfa and see if we can kind of imitate one of their ideas in America. And then that turned into Versus One. And so like our first Versus One is like Jubilee times Solfa. And that's where like this kind of white psych love experiment, dating experiment world came from. And so Dan's doing that. And then we hire Michael and Aaron just a few months later, or over the course of like the next 4 or 5 months. And then Aaron made Odd One Out and Michael made Spectrum. And just across all of that, like me and those 3 other directors more got traction than we could have imagined. And it's been kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah, there's this like huge boom, like a creative renaissance that was happening as you're just like launching those shows. As you were ideating those new shows, Odd One Out before Odd One Out existed, how confident were you that that was going to become like the show?
We didn't know anything. We were all filmmakers from film school. All of us loved movies. We talked about like Paul Thomas Anderson and Ang Lee and, like international cinema and like Godard films. Like we were all interested in cinema, and then we all needed jobs. And then Jubilee was hiring directors for YouTube videos. Like it was all just kind of us tricking each other into like collaborating. And then it was just, we all needed to pay the bills. So and then we didn't know what success was on YouTube. And Mr. Beast at that time was...
Who?
Mr. Beast. Shut the fuck up.
Not familiar.
He was like just starting to kind of find his niche. But like, I think Logan Paul and Jake Paul, like that around that time when I think it was like the Jake Paul documentary that what's his name was doing, where he's like, is he a sociopath? Like that was kind of Jubilee or the YouTube era at the time. And so we really were like, we want to make something that feels like it balances our filmic, I guess, like aesthetic leanings with, I guess, just some principles that will perform well on YouTube. And we saw that this kind of like social experiment was a niche that Jubilee had kind of figured out. And like Amari, Jason, and Ian and Taylor and Ryan had kind of like carved into that niche. And then the directors that joined around the time that I did, we just were like, okay, let's just see like what vocabulary and ideas can kind of fit into this. And so even when a video got, like 1 million views, we still were like, trying to build a company, trying to hire people, trying to understand how the business would grow. So we didn't really know how well we were doing or not doing, and we didn't know how long these ideas would work.
Yeah.
Like after I did 3 episodes of Middle Ground, I came back and did like a few more episodes after we did Israel Palestine, and I chose like the worst topics. Like I chose like gentrification. Like this is like college.
If you're gonna go for it, go for it.
Like the world knows about gentrification and cares about LA gentrification. So like
very high SEO.
No, terrible. But then like we did. Jason's like, no. What about like something with like men and women or teens and parents? Like Jason kind of understands like, hey, you got to think more like accessible.
Yeah.
So as my sort of college intellectual brain started to peel back, and I started to see like, oh, we need to explore things that a lot of people care about, a global audience, and even just like a more American audience can latch onto. We uncovered a lot of ideas. But I remember around that time being like, oh, we're going to run out of ideas for Middle Ground in like, we'll do 10 more and then we'll probably
we might be
retire.
Tapped out. Yeah.
We've done like, 100 episodes of Middle Ground.
Yep.
It's like, we didn't realize, I think some of these ideas or experiments had kind of a rinse and repeat quality, and you want to see what the men and women discussion is in 2018, and then you want to see what the men and women discussion is in 2022 or 2023. So there was more longevity to all of that than any of us realized.
Yeah.
And COVID, I think, forced us to... We couldn't make new ideas as quickly because like we couldn't shoot, and so it kind of pushed us in a position to like explore what we had opened up more. And so there was been kind of 2 phases of Jubilee that I've been a part of, like the discovery explosion phase, and then I think like the company maturing and the show kind of systematizing phase, where it's like, let's be like a company and a studio that like makes these shows regularly, and let's make these shows a part of YouTube culture that kind of shapes discussion. And then like this whole reaction copycat phase has happened where it's like Jubilee does it, and then all these satellite channels, well, they're not satellites, but creator channels that kind of like watch our stuff, they do it in their way.
Right.
And we don't love how they always do it.
Not all the time. I think some people are stealing like artists, you know?
Yeah.
Like plagiarism is stealing from one person. An artist steals from 100, if not thousands of influences to craft something new that might feel familiar. I wish we had more of the latter in our space, but I think it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and imitation is the greatest form of flattery, so they say. And I think if you're focused too much on how people are copying you, which at times I did, because I felt like I was like, I want people to know that we, you know, what our intention was when we came up with this idea. But the more you focus on that, the less you're focused on coming up with new ideas. And that actually can be self-defeating. So as frustrating as YouTube can be as a place where like there is not a boundary around plagiarism that I think there should be, I think you also just got to be cautious about how much you care.
Yeah. I think there's the old comparison is the thief of joy is something that I fall back on a lot. If you're focused on everything that's happening outside of you and what you can control, you're not really doing a lot of inward thinking and trying to do that. I think a better version of it probably now, and especially for Jubilee, is like comparison is the thief of creativity. Because then what happens if we're just mirrors looking back at mirrors, looking back at mirrors? Oh, they're doing that now kind of with our format. That's actually kind of clever. And then well, maybe we'll take a little bit of that sauce and like we'll start writing in cursive too. And then, but then they're going to do it. And then they're going to, and it's just this endless cycle. But where are the new ideas?
Yeah.
Where's like the iteration? Where's like the innovation that happens because of that? It's an interesting place because it's so easy to like not have blinders on and to open up your YouTube front page. And like when you log in as Jubilee, there's quite a few of those copycat channels that like populate our homepage algorithmically. It's very, very similar. And there's legitimately been times in the last 3 months since I started here that I've opened it up, be like, oh, I didn't know we made that video. That's not us.
Yeah,
that's somebody else. That's interesting. All right, moving on.
Looks like our thumbnail. That's not our thumbnail.
No.
And there have been times where copycat creators will make a thumbnail where I'm like, ooh, that's
pretty
a nice
good.
font.
Pretty
Why
good.
didn't we choose that font? That's a better thumbnail than we made. Yeah, like sometimes I look at Cody Ko's reaction thumbnails. I'm like, ooh, that's really well designed.
Yeah.
Love that aesthetic. Not ours.
Yeah, but that's also, I think, a big part of like what YouTube culture does, especially whenever you're in it as a creator or like as a media company too. You have to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening. You have to know what the big, like the meta is shifting or what kinds of content are like kind of falling out or coming in, and like to be ahead of that curve. It's all about like trying to not just stay on trend, but predict it well enough to where you can be the one to like ride the first wave of it. I think that's what Jubilee did in a really big way in that like 2014 to 2020 like era of just like, no, we are the ones that make this stuff. And then obviously now more volume of that stuff is coming out, but Jubilee has also matured from being 6 people to like full-fledged media company.
And even before that, I mean, like Jubilee started as Jason and his brother.
Right.
And then Jason's brother, and you'll have to ask him to tell the version someday, because I'm going to oversimplify it. But eventually his brother was like, I don't want to run a YouTube channel. Like I want to do other things. So Jason's like, all right, it's my show now. And he pivoted it to be like a media company. And then that kind of was when they entered these like formats. But, it's been a labor of love that he's an egg he's been laying or sitting on. He's been pushing out the egg for 7 years. I don't know how long it's been.
Whichever one makes the most sense to you.
He's been sitting on this egg and kind of growing this for a long time. And YouTube, I mean, if you going back to the Mr. B, he made it like he had a channel for like 10 years and it didn't blow up until he kind of dialed into the perfect thing. So like YouTube and just being a creator is 100% a marathon and not a sprint. You'll have a moment where it's explosive, and then it's like, but did you plan to endure the winter that comes after that spring of creativity? Creativity comes in seasons. You're not always going to have ideas that people love. Your fans aren't always going to, or your viewers aren't always going to see your intention as well as they did a year before, and you have to just be willing to keep showing up. But I think we bulldozed talking about you. I'm John, the former creative director of Jubilee. Got like 10 days left.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Is it 10 days? Yeah, it's like 10 days left.
Yeah. Who the fuck are you?
Hey man, I'm Brent. I'm the new creative director at Jubilee.
And why the hell do you want to
do this? I feel like you asking that question has so much more weight behind the punch than if anybody else asked me to do that, because you've lived it.
Yeah.
You're on your way out. Now you're like, but why would you?
Why do we
make
create?
This happen?
Why do this thing known as creativity?
Yeah, I mean, my history. I'll give the very, very brief version of my history as a creative and in like the YouTube community. I started my own YouTube channel in 2006. Like in November of 2006, I was a freshman.
Yeah.
A professor at film school. I was going to try to submit something for a film festival, and I was like, I don't have anywhere to host it. Like, can I send them a tape or something? He's like, put it on YouTube.
Like,
what
YouTube?
is that? And then from that day, I started my first YouTube channel, and that was just like garbage heap of like video art and like ideas and maybe what became vlogs after a few years.
Yeah.
And then as people started to tune in and I would get comments and I started to see the same usernames pop up over and over and over, I was like, I think maybe I'm building something here that I didn't realize. And that channel had a terrible name. So I was like, all right, we got to get a new channel. Let's start over from scratch and like really strategically try to figure this out. The channel name was Hometown Zero, not Hometown Hero. That's how I feel about myself. Crawling in my skin.
Crawling.
So I did that. I launched my own YouTube channel in early 2007. And from that, it was like off to the races. Mm-hmm. I started posting there really as like more of myself. Like I'll be the personality behind this thing rather than it being like the work and like I'm just a person who uploads it.
Yeah.
And there I started to make like legitimate friendships. Mm-hmm. And started like pre-VidCon, we had things called YouTube gatherings where it would just be like the way that they were scheduled was always so funny because it would just be like, you know what? It's 2007. July 7th, 2007, 777. We should do something for that. And it'd just be like, you all want to go to Philadelphia and hang out? Be like, okay, cool. And then it would be like, oh, 2009. So let's do 7, 8, 9. That'd be a cool one to do. You want to go to New York? And we were just like, I don't know why they were always scheduled around these like date-based anomalies. Like, oh, the number is cool. Let's make it a thing.
Yeah.
So we did Philly, we did New York, we did one in LA, and then eventually, like Hank and John Green created VidCon, and so go to the first VidCon.
Oh, they created VidCon?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
It was in the basement of a hotel, I believe in Century City, and there was not a lot of people there. But the beautiful thing about like the YouTube community at that time was everyone knew everyone, and you were all contemporaries. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really fans. It wasn't really viewers that were there. It was like I make videos, you make videos. Let's get in a room with 1,000 other people who also do that. Let's talk about what that means. Let's collab. Let's like learn a little bit more about this, talk as like human beings and bolster these friendships.
That brings up a question because honestly, I mean, as far as the world was concerned at that point, at least a lot of the world, YouTube was kind of trash.
Oh, it was amateur hour. I was a pariah in film school.
Yeah.
There were the artists, there were the filmmakers, and then there was the YouTube kid.
I was like,
I'm not interested in only one.
I like this thing called Vimeo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I got asked that for sure at that time. Why don't you put them on Vimeo? You can put it up in much higher quality, and it's not 4:3. It's 16:9.
There was this attachment to aesthetics for sure. And I was one of those guys who was like, I want to figure out how to shoot on 16 millimeter and scan it because like, but then anyone who observes film history long enough realizes that the crappy camera of today
so much better
is the coveted aesthetic of tomorrow. So
Yeah.
like there will probably come a day where people are like, I just really want to get my hands on like the iPhone 8 so that I can shoot my thesis on
I've got
that.
one sitting around. I can put it on eBay if anybody wants one.
You know, like it's because the technology comes to be like it becomes the texture of a time.
Yeah.
And that texture is felt by the viewer, and that becomes it just symbolizes authenticity later on.
Oh, if you shot something on do you know what a flip camera is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a brick, a flip out USB 2. I mean, that was what everyone shot everything on.
Wow.
If I saw something today that got posted in 2023 that was shot on one of those, I would immediately know that it was shot on that.
pumping.
And I know the struggle of like popping the USB out and trying to plug it into your computer, but the camera's too big, so you got to like tilt your computer up to plug it in. It's like that's such a beautiful era where mistakes didn't exist because like none of this had stakes yet. Like
Yeah.
I was one of the first probably 500 partners in the YouTube Partner Program back in 2008 whenever they opened up monetization. Like I remember getting that first AdSense check for like I think it was $200. It's like the base, like you have to make at least that for it to be worth them to like print a check and send it to you. And I remember like being at my parents' house on like Christmas break or something from college and like picking up the check because they mailed it to my parents' house because I was like living in a dorm, being like, yo, I made money on this. Like, I think this could be like a
200 big ones.
real thing. And well, and then the number goes up and up. And I think my contemporaries certainly kept soaring. But where I found in that niche was like, I really loved the moments of the gatherings and of VidCon. And like, I was living in Texas at the time. I would just like come crash on like people's couches in LA just to like see how they made stuff. And to like help them out. It was like the film school part of me and the creator part of me were like kind of blending in together where like, I don't know if I want to do this YouTube grind forever and ever, but I love this world so much.
Yeah.
And I was living in Texas, and I knew the Fine brothers who created like Kids React, Teens React. Back in 2011, there was this big initiative to give a bunch of channels funding. It was called I think it was just called the YouTube Creator Initiative. But there's 100 channels that they funded and gave a bunch of money to make more premium content for the website. And I was full-time YouTuber making short films, trying to do the film festival thing. And I got a call on a Friday from, I think Benny Fine called me. And he was like, hey, you live in LA, right? And I remembered I was at the middle of a cattle ranch in Texas with like no cell service trying to shoot this short film with my friends. And I was like, I absolutely live in Los Angeles. What's up? He goes, well, we're shooting this thing. Do you think you could be here on Monday to help us direct like pieces of it? And I was like, yeah, obviously. That's right down the road.
Yeah.
Packed my car up pretty much that day, abandoned my apartment in Texas, like called my mom on the road and was like, hey, I brought my dog in a suitcase, but like, you can trash everything I own in that apartment, but I'm moving to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And
Why?
went out there and
Why did you believe in the medium of like the internet and YouTube specifically so much? Because I think that is a big risk.
It certainly is. I think I saw from a first-person point of view posting content. Like around the 2008 election, I was making a lot of stuff like on my college campus interviewing people, and one of the videos I made got posted on Barack Obama's website. And I remember going home for the Thanksgiving break that year and being like, my dad is very much a Republican. My mom is a Democrat. So I was like, oh, I'll share this with both of my parents. One of them will get excited. We'll see. And I just remember even for my dad being like, especially amidst that election, I think being like, that's actually really cool. That guy's running for president. Your face is on the front page of his website.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there is immense power in this. I shot that video on my laptop in my dorm room.
Yeah.
If I have a point of view, if anyone has a point of view, something to say, a take, an angle, art to create, there is now a much faster path to getting a feedback response to like, in my mind, fuel more of it. I was trying to submit to film festivals, and you'd spend months and months working on a short and submit it, and then you're just sitting around like crossing your fingers, hoping it gets accepted, and maybe I'll get to go take that trip, and maybe I'll get to hold up the laurel or whatever. And I was like, I'm posting things on YouTube that are
Those
getting
symbols.
hundreds of thousands of views, while all my contemporaries are like desperately trying to get into Sundance. And to be fair, like I think a few of them have since then. Like if you continue on that path of attrition, like, and if you really believe in it, I do believe like the universe is always on time.
Yeah.
And it might not be right now for you. It might be 20 years. It might be 30 years. The universe is always on time. And I think I just living in that change that was happening from television and film to the internet and seeing how democratized it was getting was like, I have to put everything into this.
Yeah.
And I pretty much abandoned almost all aspirations to do anything else other than to like make my own videos and help other people make their stuff better.
Yeah.
So I moved out to LA. I ended up working for the Fine brothers for a year. We had a show called My Music. So I was the director for that for a full year. And then bounced around, was editing for folks like Shane Dawson and other like pretty big YouTubers at the time. And then I think I hit my The Universe is on Time was running into a colleague and kind of a mentor I had as a YouTube creator, this woman named Kathleen Grace. I love you, Kathleen. Who was like, we're building a production studio in Los Angeles. I was like, oh, who's we? She's like, YouTube is. Do you want to help?
That was the YouTube space.
That was the YouTube space LA.
Which is why Odd One Out exists, because we wouldn't have been able to make that without that resource.
Oh, yeah. If you guys don't know, unfortunately it doesn't exist anymore, but it was an absolute playground for creative people. I mean, it was a 40,000 square foot production facility that was like,
bring back the YouTube space.
Bring back the space.
Bring back the space.
It was a beautiful moment in time where like you'd be walking down the hall and I'd be going from like our equipment cage down to post to talk to somebody, and you would see like Ludacris and Demi Lovato walk by shooting a music video, but Rhett and Link are in this stage, and a creator who has 10,000 subscribers is shooting something on the green screen, but everyone's there just like rubbing shoulders and end up being like caught in conversations and talking and stuff. It's just like, this is where creativity is happening. And I got to be there for, I think 4 years. My memory is now fuzzy how long I was there exactly, but for 4 years as I started as a video production specialist, helping other people just increase their production quality and giving them kind of like, you know, advice if and when they needed it, and then turned into a senior producer doing all of our content internally and externally for the YouTube space. So hosting events and meeting creators and still being very involved with the like, you know what would make this video great? A jib or a steady cam. They're like, I don't know how to use that. Be like, oh, fun for you. I do.
Yeah.
Let me teach you and your crew how to use it, and then you get one for free.
Maybe you can get more jibs in Jubilee content.
I think we need a 35-foot techno crane on every production.
I mean, yeah.
So unnecessary.
That was not something that ever crossed my mind, but it definitely would help some of those wides.
I think so.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that we could do, but that was like the peak, I think, for me of, I actually stopped being a creator for myself at that time because I was just so busy and so loving being in this environment and helping other people and just like getting a chance to work on short films for YouTube. And I got to interview filmmakers like Jason Blum, Guillermo del Toro. I spent like a weird amount of time with Stan Lee for like a promotion thing we were doing. And it was like, oh, I think I'm understanding where I fit in the world, where like my knowledge and ability of traditional media and how like big brands and big companies like things handled in a little bit more of like a buttoned up professional way to like the very scrappy YouTube world.
So Nickelodeon, you ended up at
Nickelodeon came right after that. Yeah.
To build out their digital channels. And then it was like Viacom, it was just like you kind of.
That was a very different world. Yeah.
And then Google. So it's just like you've been helping gigantic brands.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as like just the bridge between like what the YouTube creator community and ecosystem is and what I feel like it really represents. And like you said, these giant conglomerates like a Viacom, Paramount, Nickelodeon, even Google.
Yeah.
Like helping them also understand that like there is a beautiful overlap between these two worlds that can happen where like you're like radically authentic and raw and honest about stuff, but it has that like premium polish to it that still makes it feel like you could watch this on your phone, but you could blow it up on a movie theater screen and it would be just as good and just as entertaining. Yeah, so spent a lot of time at Nickelodeon. That was a very fun experience as well. A lot of my old team is still there. But yeah, after that, I got a chance to work at Google for the YouTube communications team. So I was, in a way, Susan Wojcicki, the previous CEO of YouTube, I was her director. So like the weird in-joke we had was I was the only person at YouTube who got to tell Susan what to do. Because it would just be like, sit up straight, pull the microphone a little bit closer, but still in a way, like I'm kind of bossing around the CEO. This is super fun.
Yeah.
But that was a much more like corporate comms job, like working in editorial, like supporting the YouTube blog and like community, bolstering the community and like creating collaborations with our like executives at the very, very top of this mountain that I'd been a part of since 2006. So in that way, it felt like a very cool full circle moment for me. Like I went from being by myself in my dorm room making YouTube videos to now like being one-on-one in a room with the CEO of the company that I like truly still to this day. I love YouTube. I don't think I'll ever not love YouTube for everything that it has to offer, all of its blemishes and all of its promise.
Yeah.
But it
like
was just like such an amazing, exactly. It was just such an amazing full circle thing to be able to do that. Unfortunately, when Susan left, she retired recently from her position as CEO. Google had a 12,000 person layoff that happened in January and March, and I was a part of that layoff. So I was kind of left for the first time since being in film school with like, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I've climbed at the time. I was working with the CEO and like the CFO of like this giant company. Like, am I just gonna go back to making my own videos? Am I gonna try to like help people out? So I took some time and like, you know, I had a daughter recently and, you know, we're just trying to like figure our life out with that and all the new things that come with being a parent and like now a tremendous responsibility of like, I could survive a year without health insurance. Sure. But my 2-year-old should not have to suffer because I'm like trying to find myself or whatever.
Isn't that too relatable as a father
Yeah.
in his 30s? It all comes down to health insurance.
Don't
at
it?
the end of the day.
Sometimes it's like the very little things that like end up inspiring a push for more. So
Yeah.
I spent probably like 6 months doing a lot, and for the first time really in my life, like a lot of soul searching and figuring out like if this doesn't define who I am anymore, like being the YouTube guy, being like the filmmaker guy, what does? And so I like admittedly felt really lost this year for a lot of it, just like feeling like I didn't have purpose anymore, like that I had gotten opportunities and maybe I had squandered them in some way. I was laid off with 12,000 other people. It was not a personal attack on me or the work that I was doing.
Oh, totally.
But I just like was really looking for answers in like a really big way. And I thought like, well, how do we just like simplify it? Let's start making stuff again. Let's start talking to more people. Let's get back to like reaching out to folks on Twitter or Instagram and like almost take away the shine of being like a Google employee and be like, no, remember, I'm the same as everybody else who's like trying to make
Just
stuff.
a creative
How
guy.
can I help you? So I just started reaching out to folks. How can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you? And of course, looking on LinkedIn, looking on Indeed for jobs and stuff. And I don't know if I told you this. I think I had 20 interviews with 20 different companies, and that was just the first interview. Most of those interviews then go 6, 7, 8 rounds. So I was spending months of time
Your full-time job was
desperately
looking for a
trying to
job.
find a job, and it being my full-time job already, I got very close with a few companies. But even in those, I was like, something is missing here. I don't feel like a pull or an undeniable need to work at that place.
Yeah.
And, I was very qualified for all of that. I got an offer for one and I like said no, and they were shocked. And I had no other prospects. Jubilee was not on the horizon at this point. And I was like, I need health insurance. I need like, again, to like relight that fire in me, but like, this does not feel right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, politely, I'm going to decline. They're like, did you see how much money we offered you? I was like, I did.
Yeah.
That's more money than I've ever made at any other job I've ever had.
And we're not
But I
paying you
just
that much.
nope. But I just feel like I need to get back to having that drive. And like, I think seeing Jubilee post the creative director job whenever I did was one, it reignited a memory I had, which was like talking to Jason and some of the crew while I worked at the YouTube space and like remembering the reputation that Jubilee had amongst the folks who were working with me at YouTube at the time as just like the most stand-up human beings. Never really about the content. The content was like not a question. They're making great stuff, they're pushing the boundaries. All of that was not what we talked about. It was always like they're just the nicest people. And I was like, that's what I want to be around again.
It is true. Everyone I worked with at Jubilee has always been.
So happy you said that and it wasn't some sort of bait and switch.
No, that's how it always has been. Jason's a very decent person, and everybody who I've worked with, I've always loved. I think there have been seasons to the company where we had to do a layoff.
Yeah, I think this year was hard for everybody.
Yeah, and we've never been that big, so it's like it's not like Google laying off thousands of people, but even the toughest decision as parting ways with a handful of people can take a toll. And I think but I think you're right, there is like a core goodness to what Jubilee wants to be. I worry that sometimes it's not reflected in the content as much as
I think I share that a little
as
bit.
it used to. I just think the tricky thing about the internet is when you create for the internet, you are creating the internet equally as much as the internet is creating you.
Well, hold on.
And so
That was good.
there's
That was good.
there's a certain amount, the audience, whether they know it or not, are asking for things
Yeah.
based on what they view. And if you're trying to build a business based on revenue that's based on viewership, what the audience wants to see, whether they know it or not, becomes what you make for them. And it's very hard to keep that balance where it's like, we're making this because it fulfills our mission and it's what we want to make, but also because we believe it'll get views. And the huge part of the creative philosophy at Jubilee has always been trying to strike the balance there. So, like the axes, and it's like we're trying to kind of hit in the middle, blah, blah, blah. And I think we've done a really good job at trying. And I think there have been times where we succeed and times where we miss. But I do hope, and what I'm grateful about, just having spent time with you, is I do feel like you're somebody who wants to preserve that as well.
The mission is the most important part of this company to me. And that in the first months that I've been here, everywhere I've worked has had a mission statement, a slogan, whatever it is. Google's was "Don't be evil."
Yeah.
Jubilees provoke understanding and create human connection. And I think I heard that the first time and was like, okay, I'm going to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt.
Puke
yeah, I do love puke. How
Everything
hard does this
with
video
a little
puke?
bit of irony and self-awareness helps.
But I think even that was like, all right, if I go in and they're actually thinking about and talking about that mission, and if it really is informing some of these decisions, that will be a surprise that I am very, very open and hopeful to get. And I think I have seen that in our brainstorm sessions, in our ideation sessions. Sometimes we get to an idea and it does kind of become like, but does this puke?
Yeah.
How hard does this puke?
Or can it
Is
puke?
Can it puke down the line? Maybe the first couple episodes we make won't puke everywhere.
This is definitely now going to be the cold open
Is
to
it?
the video. Puke, puke, puke.
Yeah.
Puke, puke, puke.
I'm just worried that I haven't puked today.
Yeah.
We jumped in here and did this first thing. Now we got to go out there.
I don't feel like I'm living
make
life
sure
unless
everybody's
I
puking.
at least puke once a day.
Provoke understanding, create human connection.
PUCHC.
Yeah, but I like to be in that, almost to backtrack a little bit, to be in that space kind of this summer where I was feeling like a little listless, and then to like see a mission like that and go, that's kind of exactly what I've been looking for. Is no knock to any of the content I made whenever I was at Nickelodeon. I grew the main channel, Nickelodeon, me and my team, of course, from under 1 million subscribers to 10 million by the time I left. And I was like, okay, this is great, but I don't think any of that puked. It was a lot of like 100 times SpongeBob farted, lol, and we're like, banger.
Yeah.
This is gonna be great. This is gonna get a ton of views. This is gonna hit our goals or whatever. And it was a little easier, to be honest, to like put the ball through the goalpost as far as like viewership count and all that other stuff. But no part of me was getting left behind in the content, almost to your point earlier. I wasn't putting any of myself into any of it. It was just sort of very like almost paint by numbers in a way. Even like we were doing compilations, we were doing live action scripted stuff, reality shows. I mean, we made every kind of piece of content you could possibly make, but I always felt very disconnected from it. And it wasn't ever anything where I was like, a video goes live and I'm excited to send it to my parents. I'm excited to send it to my friends, or like, to like get the word out and be like, I did this. I made this. Like, isn't that like fun, cool, interesting? I don't know.
Yeah.
And there's just something about Jubilee where every video we talk about, I'm like, I think there is at least one person in the world that can watch this and be really affected by it. Ideally, there are much, much more. But if one person watches this and it changes their worldview, their perspective, the way they think about themselves, the way they think about the people around them every day, like if that to me is like,
well, and that's something I do want people to realize. I mean, on its surface, I'm glad we're having this conversation. This could come across as very self-important, but I do like that we're at least just putting it on the record to reset or revisit the intention of what we're trying to do with the videos. And to the 10 people who get this far in and hear this bit, we are trying to serve humanity through these videos. It's hard to do that on the internet in a way that serves the business. But that's what we were trying to do. We're not making a lot of money. It takes a big team to make this kind of content. And
money in usually is money right back out to make more stuff.
Yeah. So it's not for personal gain. I do think we like to get views. I think we have to keep that in check. But I do think, and the reason you're here and what I like to hear from you is like the hope that every video we make can serve one or a handful of people at the very minimum in a way that makes them feel seen, but not seen in like any kind of artificial way. I think there's a lot of like virtue signaling culture that's come up in the last few years, and not that it's all bad, but like just that moment of authenticity where someone with a similar flaw as you talks about that flaw.
That's important to hear.
Yeah. And I think people often are watching our videos and looking for all of the good bits. But something I've really, really tried to do as the creative director at Jubilee, and when I was making the videos hands-on, was it's all of the bad bits of us that is truly what allows us to relate when we struggle with the same things, when we both are perplexed by the same problem, we have the same fears, we have the same anxieties, or we see somebody aware of their imperfections, but still try and honestly see themselves. That is the magic of Jubilee. I really have enjoyed doing that. I think the comments section, unfortunately, doesn't reflect, I think, the depth that those moments really provide. But I believe that there are, for as many people who are loudly saying bullshit in the comment section, which is probably mostly young teens, there are hopefully as many or more people who are silently watching and viewing and absorbing or relating to those human stories and moments in a way that's meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think we'll do that. I think you have that value, and so I'm glad that you're here. That's why we chose you. But I'm looking forward to seeing Jubilee do that more. I'm also looking forward to seeing it change.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question for you is 10 days left in your current stead. What do you think 2024 looks like for Jubilee?
I don't know.
Hopes or worries?
I don't know. I mean, I still think there's we're going into an election year, just to get very specific. We're going into an election year with two of the same presidential candidates that, it's like, it's deja vu moment for the country, and American politics right now is matters to the world. So I'm so glad we have a show like Middle Ground to explore and open up conversations there. And I think there's a lot of people on both sides of the political aisle that we really admire who I would love to see appear in that show.
I agree.
There's a lot of cultural leaders, and I think Middle Ground is a forum that can be a place to invite a neutral audience to engage with a diverse range of opinions. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Middle Ground can be a part of that season of politics. I don't want Middle Ground to change the course of politics, but I would like it to maybe be a resource to how people engage with that. But then beyond that, I think what I like is there's just a lot of unknowns. And I think it's good. There's a lot of people here at Jubilee. I mean, so many editors like Brandon, Vegan Brandon, Bonnie, who's created Nectar, and is kind of overseeing that. We've got so many talented editors, so many talented directors. Paulo, Ragini, Rob, our editor. There's Mark in casting. There's so many people at this company who I think have so much to say. What's great is the team is stacked. It's stacked across.
You got a good roster.
And
that's for sure.
It's nice not knowing, because it's going to be up to those creative people to kind of have a voice, and you. And I think that's a good position to be in. And I think as long as Jubilee can just continue to exist, like, a media company is always kind of a miracle.
Continue to exist is actually a really good goal.
Yeah, that should be
maybe not one we vocalized as a company, but continuing to exist would be wonderful.
I do wonder if, like, how many Disneys exist in the world, or can be born. We've seen so many brands kind of nosedive. BuzzFeed. But I think, we have friends over at BuzzFeed, or friends who graduated from BuzzFeed. Mm-hmm. It created a lot. It was a platform that created a lot of cool voices. Vice is kind of going through its thing. It's so rare that a brand crystallizes in this way and becomes this giant thing. And sometimes I think we think that all media brands are like this successful or on this trajectory, but it's actually not true. And, a lot of them sort of fade and wither like anything. But I hope, and it's okay if it doesn't happen, but I hope that Jubilee kind of just continues to evolve and exist. And I would love to be able to say I was a part of that. And for one day, somebody will look back at this video and be like, oh, this is interesting in a larger context.
Yeah.
And I hope, that it can mean something. And I hope that at least core element of, like, media that matters to people and that cares about human beings, I hope that is preserved, and however that manifests through the content, it's just going to be exciting to see.
Well said. Let's just keep existing, man.
Just keep existing.
Let's do it.
But are we done? Is that it?
I think that's it, man. I mean, I just want to thank. It's a very rare opportunity to join a company or to start in a new role and have your predecessor still be there.
I know it's been very.
So I do want to thank you for like maybe a lot of things. You've been so immensely helpful and kind to me, but for just being open and willing to help during this transition, I think is something that like has made it much easier for me, and I think gave me so much appreciation for the weight that this position has on it and the importance of being able to like guide this team of incredibly talented people. So I mean, thank you for the opportunity. I hope I don't let you down.
Oh, no, you deserve it.
They're going to be in the comments like, no Brent, only John. What happened? No. But I'll win you over. I promise.
Yeah, no, and I think just you're welcome. That's all I've got. But no, you've got this, and I just can't wait to see what happens.
Hell yeah, brother.
Cool. Fist bump?
Nah, bring it in.
And we're out.
All right. That was hopefully in focus.
We'll see.
Yeah. We forgot to press record.
No.
Oh, thank God we did it.
And then I think I just pressed.
Hey, John.
Hi, John.
Hey, John.
Hey, John.
Hey, John.
Hey, John.
Hey, John.
Hi, John.
Hey, John.
Hi, John. Hi, John. We're gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you. We're all gonna miss you. We're gonna miss you, John. We're all really gonna miss you.
We're going to miss you so much.
Thank you for everything. I'm gonna miss you.
I'm very, very grateful for you and going to miss you a lot.
Thank you for all the good times at Jubilee.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everything you have done for Jubilee. I'm not going to cry this time.
Working with you has really been just really formative for me, and I think undoubtedly I am a better editor, a better creative, a better leader because I've worked with you.
Thank you for being a great fellow director, a creative director and manager, and just an amazing friend.
I just want to thank you so much for like helping me find my voice and my vision and my space.
I am so thankful for all that you have done for us as a company, as individuals, pushing us outside of our comfort zone.
Thank you so much for all of your constant kindness and creativity and hard work that you brought to Jubilee.
You are a creative director who is empathetic and constantly open to learning about this world around us and each other. You are someone who's believed in me since I started at Jubilee.
I just want to say how grateful I am, man, for the short amount of time that we got to work together.
Thank you for everything that you've done for me since I've gotten here.
It's been fun working with you over these past few years.
You've built something here that really protected creatives and made like a work-life balance sustainable here. And so I'm just forever grateful for that.
It's kind of unbelievable that we won't be seeing you on Zoom anymore. And it almost feels illegal that you're leaving Jubilee.
I'm gonna miss how much you believe in us and believe in our mission.
We're totally gonna miss you. Thank you so much for everything you do for Jubilee. I'm so excited to see what this future has in store for you.
It's been a pleasure creating with you and making a bunch of weird stuff together.
When I think about your legacy, I'm going to think about how much courage and kindness you brought to our creative process.
I think through the years I've been here at Jubilee, you've made a huge impact not only on the team, but on me.
You're one of the best dudes that I've met in this industry, so just grateful for this time.
It is gonna be a little bit emptier without you, and if I keep talking, I'm gonna cry.
I remember in my interview you were there and I thought you were just so friendly and so easy to talk to.
You are someone who's believed in me since I started at Jubilee, and the way that you've seen my skills and ways for me to grow has meant so much.
I am so thankful for our time together.
I know I would not still be here today if it were not for you.
You're going to be dearly missed and very excited to see all the new stuff that you create in the future.
It was just amazing to be able to grow together as peers, as first-time dads, and just creatives.
I am going to miss your crazy analogies
You've been an amazing leader, and I am so excited for all your future endeavors.
I know you're going to do some amazing things, so.
I'm so lucky that I got to meet you, and I'm wishing you lots and lots of luck and joy on this next adventure of your life.
And I know that you're going to kill it at whatever else you do in life.
Best of luck in your future endeavors, man.
And I'm stoked to see what you do next.
And I'm excited to see what you build and create and all the other creatives you help next.
I know that we'll probably see you again soon, somehow.
So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. That's all. Okay, goodbye.
So thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Bye, John.
Best of luck. Mwah. We're going to miss you. Take it easy, man.
Have a good one, brother.
Take care, dude.
Love you, brother.